All right, guys. So in case you've been living under a rock or you don't follow the Jazz very closely, the Jazz have been in a free fall recently, not playing well. They've lost like 5 of their last 7 games, and the clashes between Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell have just gotten worse as the season's gone along, to the point now where it seems like things are broken. It's pretty apparent from the outside in there are problems. If you're a Jazz fan, you've been watching it, you can see that there's something going on. But yesterday, Zach Lowe had Tim Macmahon on his podcast and had some really interesting insight into what's going on, and that the Dallas Mavericks might have some serious interest in Rudy Gobert. Let's listen to it.
Listen, I'm just going to tell you, I know I've heard from externally and internally that the Mavericks would have significant interest. And I know Rudy well enough to know that he would love to play with Luka. You know, I remember when Luka was drafted, Rudy tweeted then, this guy's going to be phenomenal. Also, you know, there's little things like Rudy's agent, Boone Njai, lives in suburban Dallas. Boone wanted Rudy with the Mavericks going into the draft. And Rudy's first draft workout was in Dallas, and it was against Steven Adams. And remember, this was Rudy, raw coming out of
I'm
France.
guessing this was unpleasant for
it was not it was not a workout that made the Mavericks interested in drafting Rudy Gobert. Now, different deal, but no, I think the Mavericks would be as aggressive as any team to go get. Now, the question is, what kind of deal could they put together? You know, how many picks are they willing to put in there? I can get you some expiring in that deal. What's the rest of the thing look like? Can you take Bertans as the salary to make it to fill it in? Hardaway, I don't want to give up Bullock. I don't want to give up Dinwiddie. I don't know. But I do know that the Mavericks would be very aggressive if Gobert's on the market this summer.
All right, there you go. So basically, the Dallas Mavericks are super interested in Rudy Gobert, and a lot of this is coming from Dallas, likely to try to create some sort of, to put a fire under the Jazz to make something happen, because right now the vultures are circling around the Utah Jazz. With like 4 or 5 games left till the playoffs, there are teams that are seeing that this Jazz team, it might be on the verge of just breaking apart. It's very clear that Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, I think they're at the point now where they're just like done. They don't want to work it out. They've been doing it for years. It's just not working. They keep taking shots at each other. Rudy Gobert takes a shot at Donovan Mitchell saying, look at Devin Booker and how good his defense is. And then Donovan Mitchell calling things that Rudy Gobert says is childish and things like that. So I think at a certain point, the Jazz are just like, they're going to break apart. And so the Dallas Mavericks are obviously interested in what the Jazz have. Here's something I put together quickly, a quick trade proposal between the Jazz and the Mavericks, something that, at worst, the Jazz might consider. I don't know if they will, because I don't know if these two players are good enough for what Rudy Gobert brings. But here's what I came up with. So this was just a quick glance at the Mavericks roster and the Jazz roster, and just kind of if the Jazz just did something straight across. Obviously, I think the Mavericks would need to put at least a first-round pick in this, maybe this year's first-round pick, to the Jazz to make this happen. The Jazz might do it because they don't have a first-round pick in this upcoming draft, because that's going to the Memphis Grizzlies. But if you're replacing Rudy Gobert with Dwight Powell, that's obviously a downgrade for the Jazz. Rudy Gobert is the best defensive player of the last 10 years. And so getting Dwight Powell is a clear downgrade. But one nice thing is if you bring over Tim Hardaway Jr., Utah can put him next to Donovan Mitchell. They can make Donovan Mitchell the main point guard and then get some size with Tim Hardaway. And then maybe that allows the Jazz to do something with Mike Conley this offseason. That might be something the Jazz would be willing to do. Tim Hardaway brings a little more size, something the Jazz need, because with Mike Conley, the Mike Conley-Donovan Mitchell duo is just undersized, and it just hasn't really worked. And so this is kind of an idea, and maybe a first-round pick, maybe 2 first-round picks. They're not going to be good first-round picks, and so maybe Dallas would be willing to give a couple, because Dallas with Luka Doncic and Rudy Gobert is going to be an incredible duo. And that's why the Dallas Mavericks are interested in this. The Dallas Mavericks are interested in making this trade because they know how good Rudy Gobert is and what he's going to do. He's the defensive player of the year. He's likely going to be a 4-time defensive player of the year this year. He is an incredible lob threat. He's the most effective pick and roll big man in the NBA. And who runs a better pick and roll than Luka Doncic? Who throws a better lob than Luka Doncic? And then the fact that you have Rudy Gobert behind Luka on defense makes this Dallas Mavericks defense even better. So obviously it makes all the sense in the world for the Dallas Mavericks. For the Jazz, you need something. And I don't know if this trade even does it. This really feels like a 3-team trade type thing that will happen, because if the Utah Jazz trade Rudy Gobert, they've got to decide what they want to do with Donovan Mitchell, because in that same podcast, and by the way, go to the Zach Lowe podcast, that's where it's at. Go listen to what he says. If you trade Rudy Gobert, are you going to trade Donovan Mitchell? Because in that podcast, they said that Donovan Mitchell is likely not going to stay in Utah after this contract. So is it better to just get ahead and get all the picks you can, you know, and just start and do a tank the right way? Because they never really did a tank. The interesting thing about the Jazz is they went from Gordon Hayward to Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. They never dropped off at any point. And they probably should have, because they should have had at least one more star to pair with Donovan Mitchell. They were just so good, they never dropped into the lottery to get that guy. And they could have gotten Desmond Bane last year, but that's spilt milk at this point. So anyways, this is what I thought about the trade. I think after this playoffs, it really depends on what the Jazz do in the playoffs. If the Jazz win big in the playoffs, if they go deep, then maybe it fixes all these issues. But I think at this point, with all the sniping and Mitchell and Rudy Gobert taking shots at each other, this is likely over. And we're going to start seeing more and more trade rumors and proposals like this. And this offseason gets pretty crazy for the Jazz. Guys, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to the channel. I will talk to you next time.